Live from the garage. Just got done working out a few minutes ago. Well, I worked out and then I cooked my wife a steak, and she actually had some. She wanted to try the lump crab, or the jumbo, not the jumbo, the Dungeness crab, and she just she didn't like it. She tastes too fishy. I said, well, that's kind of how it's supposed to taste. Anyway, well, I'll just sort of put aside the next 30 minutes or so, just answer questions and see what crops up, what things you might want to be that's on your mind. I'll wait till people pop in here. I know it takes a few minutes to see for the thing to update, I think, unless no one's there today. So it's Thursday, 6 p.m. where 6:07 where I'm at in the world, and I'm out on the West Coast. So we've got Vince saying I ate a pound a day, separate times, and I felt backed up. Okay. Hi from Crestview, Florida. We got a number one meat eater kid. Hi, Dr. Baker. Hey kid, what's happening? Baddest cat saying hello. Sandra Saunders, good to see you. Looking good. Thank you for that. Lisa Creason says hi. What's up, Doc? Says will be. Yeah, so I'm just, gosh, got so much travel coming up, guys. It's kind of crazy times. Getting ready to head out to Austin, Texas next week on Wednesday. I leave there for I think about a 5 or 6 day stretch. The formerly KetoCon, now Hack Your Health Summit, I'll be speaking at there, and I will. We also have our Revero company, which is I'm very excited about. As you guys know, it's I think we have now close to 11,000 people sign up for that. So y'all on the waiting list. How many of them will actually end up going through the program? I'm not sure, but anyway, we're making headway into this just absolute disaster of a healthcare system we have. And then so from there, I have to head to let's see. So that'll take me into June, and then I go to Laguna Beach for a week in California, and then I'm going to I just booked tickets for Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm going to be speaking at a Cattlemen's Foundation in efforts to raise some money for research for carnivore research, and then from there I'll be heading to Tulsa, Oklahoma to give a talk alongside a guy named Tim Tebow, who some of you guys might know. He's be talking at an event there. And then from there, I think July, I'm debating going to Tennessee. I don't know if I'll be able to or not for a big Bitcoin conference. I'm not sure if I can do that yet. And then after that, I got in August, I've got Spain and France and Spain. And then September, I'm speaking at a keynote speaker at a veterinarian conference, which surprisingly. And then I'm also going to Slovakia, and there's something else in September, but I can't remember what it is. Oh, maybe Dallas, Texas. Yeah, I might be going on Blaze TV in Dallas, Texas. And then October, God, where am I in October? New York, I think, for something. And then I can't even remember. Sorry. Germany at the end of October, and then the Galapagos Islands in the end of November. And I don't think hopefully not traveling in December. All right. Anyway, got a lot of stuff. So let's see. I'll just see if I can catch up some of these questions here. All right. This is from Lou. Hey, Dr. Baker, question. By which mechanisms do carnivores gain fat when their insulin output is low? Can you please help me understand? Is it IGF-1 that does that? So if your insulin is low, can you gain fat? Yeah, I think the answer, I know as frustrating as this may seem, it ultimately will come down to how much, you're consuming versus how much you're burning. I know it's a calories in, calories out thing, but we have to realize there are a lot of caveats to that. There are a lot of hormonal things that come into play. There are a lot of things that upregulate and downregulate, say things like our heat output, right? I can't control how much body heat I generate. It just happens. It's something that is affected by what I eat. It's affected by hormonal fluctuations. For instance, and this is something people lose, or they'll eat more calories and they won't gain weight. They're like, I was eating an extra 1,000 calories a day on carnivore and I didn't gain weight. In fact, I lost weight. Well, what's going on in that situation? Well, you have these compensations. Your temperature might go up. Your heart rate may go up. There are things that occur. Your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis goes up. So the fact that you become more fidgety, perhaps, and those things can occur. And so sometimes, there's other things that determine how much weight we gain or lose outside of just what we eat, right? There's the outside of the equation, which can be upregulated and downregulated just as well as we could sort of dial the switch on how much we eat. Now, to be clear, is eating a pound of donuts the same as eating a pound of steak? No, it's not. Clearly, it's not. The same thing is sitting there with a heart rate of 72, the same as sitting there with a heart rate of 90. It's not either. So, and those things are kind of controlled by the so-called autonomic system, so it's hard to control that. So your insulin isn't zero. If it was zero, you would be dead, right? Or, I mean, that's what a type 1 diabetic has. And if they don't get insulin, they will eventually die. They will basically starve to death because insulin is required for storage of amino acids, storage of protein, storage of fats, storage of glucose. If you have none of that, then you are going to die, and that's what happens. Type 1 diabetics before the widespread use of insulin they would have often starved to death despite eating massive amounts of food. Okay, here's one from DK in blue. I'm just gonna kind of randomly kind of answer these to the best of my ability. I know there's that sort of super chat function. If you've got an urgent question, that might get my attention more easily, but I'm gonna, like I said, I'll do the best I can here. So what do you tell your doc when they freak out on your cholesterol? Well, I mean, first of all, you have to realize that you are the CEO. You are the number one person that gets say so in your body, right? That's the first thing everybody needs to know. Your doctor literally works for you. It's not the other way around. I know it can be intimidating. He's got a degree or she's got a degree. I mean, I've got a medical degree, and like I said, I know more than the average person about a lot of things about health. However, ultimately it's up to you. And you have to say, look, this is something I'm willing to do, and these are the risks I'm willing to accept, and these are the risks I'm not willing to accept. And I think, with regard to cholesterol, I think while the majority of physicians are going to say that like elevated cholesterol is a risk factor, and I think that's, in the majority of people, that's probably a reasonable at least association, I would say. And, but if you happen to be in a particular set of circumstances where you are losing weight, getting more insulin sensitive, seeing inflammation go down, then it stands to reason, depending on how old you are. If you're over than 40, then things like a calcium score certainly become more relevant, because even the American Heart Association says if you have a coronary artery calcium score of 0, and this patient only has elevated LDL cholesterol, no other major risk factors, you can consider deferring any kind of statin or lipid lowering therapy. So that's one thing to think about. And there, like I said, we're getting more data on this stuff all the time. So again, it's up to you. I mean, what are the downsides of lowering your lipids? Well, I mean, there are side effects of these drugs, which clearly occur in a lot of people, probably more than that most people admit. And those things include muscle injuries, insulin resistance. There's questions that does it lead to long-term cognitive issues? Hard to say. So again, just the way I would approach it is say, hey, thanks, doc. I appreciate your concern. I'll take it under consideration. Is there anything else we should check to maybe verify this? I'd like to get more information, and that's the best you can do. If you can't find somebody, hey, if you can't find anybody, go to Revero. Our Revero doctors, this is what we're designed for. Literally, particularly if you are overweight, metabolically unhealthy, autoimmune disease, inflammatory disease, that's exactly what we set up for. We have physicians that will be in all 50 states, get on our waiting list, and we'll get you in there, and you'll have a doctor that kind of gets it. All right, I've got a little, looks like a super chat thing says Nav, and it says, okay, day 7 on carnivore. What do I do when I don't feel like eating meat, mainly eat the same things, eggs, bacon, ground beef, and steaks, get a little tired of eating the same things? 7 days in. Well, I mean, that's not unusual. I mean, like I said, you come from, I don't know what your previous diet is, but when you come from a diet where you have literally unlimited choices, now there are, I mean, gosh, hundreds, if not thousands of things you can make. You can have variety and make these things that are to make it more exciting, I suppose. What I would say is, in the beginning, as you're transitioning, the weird thing is, 98% of the time, I just want a steak. I mean, literally, that's what I want. I eat what I want. And I think you have to get to a point where you have to enjoy what you eat. So, I mean, variety. I mean, there's lots of different cuts of meat that are fine. You can try these things. If you need seasonings and spices in the beginning to make it more interesting, you know, Taco Tuesdays and Italian Wednesdays and whatever, you know, you can use those things depending on how, you know, I don't know what, like I said, I don't know really your details. If you're treating like a severe autoimmune condition or inflammatory gut disease, you have to be very cautious. If you're not treating those things, let's just say you want to lose weight, you can probably stand a little bit of spice, you know, and you might find that eventually you can't do that. But in the beginning, I tell people just enjoy stuff. Get stuff that you think is going to be enjoyable for you. Get some variety. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. You know, it's just sort of getting that pattern away from whatever the other sort of crappy food is a problem for you. You know, I tell people, how much should I eat? Well, eat enough so you don't want a cupcake. I mean, that seems kind of silly, like silly advice, but it's actually, I think, pretty good advice. The other thing is, you know, I think, and I had a discussion, I did a consultation with a guy the other day, and I just said, you know, he'd been struggling for 4 or 5 years. I said, look, when are you going to decide? You have to make that decision that you're no longer the sick person. You know, I mean, even though you maybe are sick, but in your head you're not. In your head you've already beaten this, and that's where I think you have to get to a point where it's just like, I'm not that person anymore. I'm not going to accept it. I'm you know, you see it sometimes. You hear about smokers that were, you know, pack-a-day smokers for 25 years, and one day they just put the pack down and never pick it up again. That's kind of the sort of the mental thing you have to do to say, look, I'm no longer a food addict. I'm no longer, you know, and I mean, sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. And you have to tell yourself, and you just kind of, your whole identity will change. You know, that's kind of where you want to get to. I know this is kind of off tangent, but I mean, as far as, you know, if sometimes you don't feel like eating anything, just don't eat. There's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, as long as you got energy and you feel reasonably good, you don't have to eat, because carnivore can be very satiating. There's some people that suggest, hey, if you're not hungry for a steak, you're not really hungry. Yeah, maybe true. Maybe there's some truth to that. But I mean, I think, you know, you really have to, you know, just kind of do what works for you for a while, and then eventually your body will kind of lead you in the direction where you just kind of know, how do I feel after these things, right? I mean, everybody is going to have an episode where maybe they fall off the wagon or something happens, and you just gotta, you know, you just gotta deal with it. Now we got another, looks like a little $5 thing there. I don't know if that's a question or, yes, Dark Sky. Have you heard of anyone that got better after having symptoms from the injection with carnivore or other treatments? So I assume you're talking about, I'm assuming it's maybe the vaccine injections. To be honest, yes, I have. I have heard people that have had some sort of, you know, itis of some sort of inflammatory condition that have improved with carnivore. So yeah, I have heard of people. In fact, I was speaking at a medical freedom conference alongside Dr. Robert Malone and some of the other, Ryan Cole and some of the other people in that space. They bring me on there because I'm the controversial nutrition guy. And yeah, I mean, I talked to a lot of people in the crowd that actually were carnivore and noticed improvements in that regard. All right, here's another sort of $5 question here from Adam Jones. Is Pepto-Bismol a bad idea to deal with bad diarrhea days, or is there anything I can do to help deal with the diarrhea in my blood as my body adjusts? Yeah, that is a interesting thing. Why do we get diarrhea on carnivore? Well, there's probably a couple of reasons. Probably the most common thing I see is actually fat malabsorption. And so the way I want you to think about this is, you know, if you're on a like strict carnivore diet, you don't have much carbohydrate, or almost none basically. And your energy has to come from fat, right? So you've got to consume an adequate amount of fat to basically fuel your brain, your body, you know, and if you don't get enough, you feel tired and sluggish and you're maybe grouchy and so on and so forth, and hungry perhaps. So you got to get enough fat. Now the question is, how much fat is it? Well, maybe it's 200 grams. That's 1,800 calories. So 200 grams of fat a day. But then you have to look at how much can I tolerate in one sitting. If I only tolerate 75 grams of fat, right, then I need to eat 3 times that day, because 75 times 75 plus 75 is 150, and then another 50 is needed to get you to that 200. So you have to be mindful of how much fat you need, how much you can tolerate in one sitting, and then of course rendered fat. Think about it. What is rendered fat? Rendered fat is basically cooked out, pure, concentrated fat that becomes liquid. Now, as soon as you put a piece of butter in your mouth and swallow it. It's liquid by the time it hits your stomach. So what does your stomach do? What is the purpose of the stomach, right? Well, the stomach, organ about this big, yay big, and it takes food and it just mushes it up and bathes it in acid, and eventually it turns it into liquid. And then that liquid will then enter the first part of our small intestine called the duodenum or the duodenum, depending on where you're from. And then from there, it goes through the intestines and is absorbed. The fat is absorbed. But if you eat just liquid fat, rendered fat, all that liquid, the stomach doesn't have to do anything to it. So instead of this slow release where it's broken down bit by bit like a piece of steak might be, now you have this rapid release of fat into the digestive tract, and it just overwhelms it. And then so what happens when it gets overwhelmed? Bloating, gas, diarrhea, things like that. So that's probably the most common thing I see. And it's just a matter of, spacing out the fat a little more, maybe dialing it back a little bit, seeing what you actually need. And then your body will adjust. There's a period of time where, for the first 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, your enzyme machinery will be upregulated. There'll be DNA stuff that changes to upregulate the expression of certain enzymes or different cell types that will be more preferentially represented in the gut. Remember, our gut, the cells in our gut are turning over every day or so. So we get new cells in there, and what dictates what cells kind of return are based on what we're eating. So of course our microbiome is going to be changed. It's going to turn over. So those are some of the things that you can think about. But the biggest thing I would say is look at the fat and just see what dosage of fat you can handle at a meal, and then figure out what you need for the day, and then calculate how many meals you need. That usually helps most people. All right, let's see. Let's just go back to the general audience here and see if anybody else has any questions here. All right, let's see what we got. This is from looks like Mode. Started carnivore 3 weeks ago and already seeing benefits with my digestion and allergies. Question, still having issues with my sleep and chronic pain right side of my body. Any suggestions? Well, I mean, as far as the sort of time frame that things might get better, I would say 3 months is a pretty, good length of time. And the reason I say that is just a few years ago, I did a survey on 12,000 people doing this carnivore diet. And by 3 months, most people saw a benefit of some sort in most of their issues. Now, some people obviously see benefits very quickly. Some people, it takes weeks and months, and some people it takes a year or more to fully resolve. But I mean, by three months is a pretty good indication. And then regarding sleep, obviously sleep there's a lot of things that go into that. One thing I would suggest is make sure your sleep hygiene is good. So of course, cool, dark room, we think 60 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit is the optimal sleeping temperature. A lot, dark, no electronics, be disciplined about your sleep. And then outside of that, the things you might want to consider are moving the majority of your calories earlier in the day. When you consume a large, particularly carnivorous meal late in the evening, there is often a lot of protein, which then means a lot of nitrogen to deal with. And how do we deal with nitrogen in the body? Well, some of it gets incorporated into our tissue, the muscle, the bone, the organs, the skin, the gut lining, neurotransmitters, and so on and so forth. But any extra nitrogen has to be converted into energy. So we've got amino acids which are gluconeogenic. We have them so they can perform glucose. There's amino acids that are ketogenic. So ketones are amino acids that can do either depending on what's going on. And then that extra nitrogen, so that's after you get the energy from extracting the carbon, the hydrogen, and the oxygen. The nitrogen that's left over then becomes ammonia. Ammonia is acutely toxic to our body. And therefore, there's something called the urea cycle. And that ammonia is then converted to urea in the liver, and then that is excreted. And it's excreted through our breath, through water vapor, through our sweat, through our urine and feces, and primarily through our urine. And so if you consume a large dinner, say 8 p.m. and your bedtime's 10, you're going to probably get up, you're going to have a poor night's sleep because you may have to get up to pee. You might have just a little bit of bladder distension that kind of keeps you awake. So those are some things I would think about, again, without knowing the details. I guess I'll put this out. I do one-on-one consultations. I do that on my website, carnivore.diet. You can find, there might be a link in the bio on YouTube. I'm not sure. Anyway, I do 2 a day. I just do 30 minutes twice a day. That's all I have, unfortunately, time for. But if you got a specific, longer question, you want to share your specific details, I'm happy to talk about it there. All All right, we got, all right, Lisa Creason. I have moved to Lion Diet, weight loss halted. Am I eating too much or not enough fat? I've been considering eating a stick of butter every day, eating mostly 1 pound of ribeye. Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, am I eating too much? Well, maybe you might be. I mean, that's something that you have to consider. I don't know your details or what's going on with other than what you're saying here, but the stick of butter thing. So, I mean, one thing I would say is some people will certainly gain weight with that strategy, and it's just not a good strategy. Now, when might it be a good strategy? Well, if you look at what is it, a stick of butter is, I think it's like 800 calories or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And we have to realize that in the context of satiety, if a stick of butter and a pound of beef, it sounds like a ribeye that might be 1,000, 1,200 calories, something like, depends how fatty it is. That might be 2,000 calories. That might be fine. That might be just the perfect amount for you to lose weight. Maybe it's a little too much. I don't know. I think fat can be a high fat approach can be helpful if the satiety is there, if it provides you enough satiety so that you eat overall less. Now, the concern I have about that, with a pound of ribeye, you're getting 100 grams of protein, unless you're a very, very big woman, then that's probably adequate amount of protein for you. So you're probably reasonably okay with that. Now, again, I think we have to realize that, there's other things, other factors there. I know people say, well, you don't exercise to lose weight. That's largely true. I mean, you can. If you were to like work out 3 or 4 hours a day, yes, you could lose weight. You could burn enough off where it would make a significant difference, but that's not practical for most people. What is practical is not being sedentary. That is probably the biggest bang for your buck. I don't know anything about your job or what you do or how you spend your days, but if you find your days are mostly setting down and being sedentary, that is the biggest lever I would pull. I would say, look, I'm standing up right now, and one thing you can see is my hands are moving around. I'm shifting around. I got my gymnastics rings I'm banging into. Maybe let me just turn this so I'm not banging into those dang things. Yeah, so you just move more. So I think the way I think about it is, hey, if I'm sitting, could I be standing? If I'm standing, could I be walking? And it's just as simple as that. And if you just kind of, let's say you have an office job and you sit all day, just get a standing desk, or if you can't afford a standing desk, get a box and stick your computer on a box. I mean, that's what I've done that for years. I just get some boxes and put my computer there and stand up. And maybe it's just for the first 2 hours of the morning, whatever. And then you move it down and sit and you just kind of build up your tolerance. So, but again, like I said, I'm happy to talk one-on-one if any of you guys need to do that. I think there's a link in the bio of my YouTube, I believe. If not, it's on carnivore.diet. You can find me there. All right. What else we got here? We got a question here from, or not a question, more of a comment from, where did I see this? Emotional support paintbrush. Nice. 6 months carnivore, mental health better, fatigue better, and oh yeah, I lost 50 pounds. Well, awesome. That's good to hear. I'll just share this. I did an interview this morning with a gal. She's a dentist. I think she's 56 years of age. And I got in there. She was just smiling, so happy. A tiny little gal, I remember, was Catherine Lim, I believe, and she was just so happy. She was just a boolean, just you could tell. And I listened to her story, and she was someone who suffered for 40 years from severe anorexia bulimia. And she's basically said she'd spent her life for 40 years starving herself all day long, coming home every night, binging like a maniac, and then basically vomiting. And just did repeat every night, ruined her teeth. She was a dentist, mind you. Was in and out of inpatient eating disorder wards where they would basically like lock them like a prison and force feed them cake and all that stuff. And, that is just one of those things that she's now like just recovered that. And she's just such a happy person from carnivore. And it's just literally the first time in 40 years, she felt I could finally start my life at age 56 that I can finally start doing it. So it was a really compelling story. All right, what else we got here? All right, thoughts on creatine. I think the supplement is from plants, says Matthew. Holbrook. In the context of a carnivore diet, I think creatine's kind of a waste of money. I mean, it's superfluous. You get plenty of creatine from red meat. So, creatine in general is a pretty good supplement, though. I mean, as far as supplements go, and I am one of the most, I guess, anti-supplement guys out there. I'm not big on supplements. I think most of them are a huge waste of money. When creatine first came out in the 1990s, I recall, early 1990s, I believe, or mid 90s, maybe something like that. And I remember using it. I remember I was bench pressing, I think 225 for a set of 18, 19 reps or something like that. And I took creatine and it got me from 18, 19 reps to I think 24 reps. So I mean, I thought that's back when I used to bench press a lot. When I could bench press, close to 400 pounds. I don't do that much anymore, but it can be effective. But do you need it on carnivore? I think probably not. I think it's probably unnecessary. All right. What else we got? I see a couple ideas on different things. I see some emotional support, leg cramps. Let's use Eleanor electrolytes daily. Yeah, I mean, cramping is one of those things that comes up that it's hard to study cramps. I mean, the literature on cramping. Can you imagine designing a randomized controlled trial on cramping? I mean, how are you going to design that? I mean, so random and unpredictable. The things that I have noticed about cramping are that, it often is, obviously electrolytes have a role here, right? I mean, muscle contractions are dependent upon, well, primarily calcium. That's what causes the actin myosin filaments just to squeeze upon each other, or they kind of ratchet down basically. And what I see is, electrolytes can play a role, but just as probably important, or maybe even more important in my view, is adequate food. I think a lot of times people get cramps when they're maybe exercising more than they're taking in. Maybe they're in this weight loss phase, and and that's what we're seeing. We got, was it Yukon Striker? You're looking aged, Shawn. Well, I'm almost 60 years of age, so I guess I am. I guess I am looking aged, but I think I would put myself up against most people my age as far as performance and things like that. Okay, where can I find a carnivore dietitian for a patient of mine? Says emotional paintbrush. There are a number out there that I can say. I'm not sure off the top. I don't have any that I know of off the top of my head, but can Revero doctors help people abroad? Says Gabrielle Pereira. Unfortunately, not yet. That's down the road. I mean, we're so far based in the U.S., but I would like to expand it overseas because I think there is a tremendous need for that for sure. Dr. M, I am a psychiatrist and I have been on carnivore for 3 months and see many of the benefits. I cite research to my medical colleagues about potential benefits in mental health and conditions. Yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, if we don't believe that food impacts our brain like any other organ, I mean, clearly it does. I mean, it's like, why wouldn't it? I mean, your brain gets, essentially the same exposure as any other organ. Of course, there's a blood-brain barrier, so there's some level of filter there. But honestly, I mean, nutrition has such a tremendous role on mental health, and it shouldn't be surprising at all. I mean, you're probably familiar with the work of Chris Palmer, George E., the Bazuki Foundation, Metabolic Minds, all that, where they're looking significantly at particularly ketogenics, and they use carnivore diets for things like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, major depressive disorder. So yeah, I mean, it's absolutely there. All right, what else do we got? What else we got? All right. Michael Greco, I have a corn from on my toe from badly fitting shoes. What do you recommend? I've changed my shoes and improved, but hard to get rid of. Any suggestions? Thank you for helping us slam a dunk. Well, I mean that's probably the biggest thing is just adjusting the shoe wear and just giving it some time. I mean I don't know as far as any other things you've tried, but I mean basically just avoiding the irritant because that's what you have to do. Keto Chow Daily Minerals has been perfect for me. Had heart palpitations are gone, says Michael Bear. So, all right. Let's see what else we have here. Blake Packer. I've been doing carnivore for about 4 months. I've had joint pain and it hasn't gotten any better. Should I stay carnivore? Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else is going on. If there's any other reasons it might be beneficial to you, again, it depends on carnivore. If the diet is going to be effective, there are things within the carnivore. They're technically carnivore, which could still be problematic, and so things like dairy, things like eggs, anything that could potentially be problematic for the gut could secondarily transmit into problems. Hang on a second, I'm going to turn this heater down or off. I've got a space heater in my garage. So I'm in Washington. It's pretty damn cold off the time, and it kicked on. It's like blowing out 90-degree heat on me, and I'm like, I'm okay with that. But what was I going to say? I mean, sometimes the joint is just too far gone. It's too damaged, and that might not be helpful. So again, without knowing the exact nature of how much damage is there, what the damage is, it's hard to really say for sure. How do we remove excess vitamin D level, 147.6 nanograms per deciliter in the blood? How do you remove it? Well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's probably unlikely unless you were supplementing heavily. And if you were supplementing heavily, then just back off on the supplementation. I've never heard of any other vitamin D that level that hasn't supplemented. So probably just dial back to the supplements would be my guess. Here's a question from Josh Kent: dry fasting, good or bad? I mean, it's probably okay for a lot of people. Again, it depends on how long you're doing and whatever's going on. I mean, the problem, well, not necessarily a problem. The concern I have around fasting is just making sure you retain lean mass. And so, I think on the shoulders of a fast, before and after, make sure you get adequate protein. I think you should do strength training while you're fasting so that you don't preferentially lose muscle mass. So, but dry fast is fine. I mean, obviously, just be mindful of, the potentials for dehydration and those types of things, particularly if it's a hot environment and you're particularly physically active. Just have to be mindful of that. There's Michael Simpkins says, send me some money. We've got Teslin Joe, I think is what that says. Sorry, on this, it's very small to see. Do I drink coffee? Blank. Oh no, it's blank. Okay, never mind. It's not to me. I don't drink coffee. I never liked it. We got Jake the Snake. Love your videos. Keep up the hard work for this. Thanks for everything. Well, thanks. Appreciate that. I'm trying to do my best to get the message out there, and I'm got to keep grinding. Jose Aboud, I think is how you say it. Sorry if I mispronounced. Greetings, Dr. Baker. Ever since I started carnivore, everything improved big time. The only thing I'm not managing to get rid of is gastritis. Yeah, I mean I've seen that before with gastritis, and obviously when your stomach is inflamed and irritated, any food will be irritated, right? And so it's one of those things. Is why do you have the gastritis? And you might have to treat the underlying cause of that. If it's an infectious etiology, hard to say. I think you might have to just give your gut some rest. So it might be something where you can kind of do infrequent meals and see how you're doing with that. All right. James Harambe, do you ever visit Norway? We have the best food here. You'd love Norway. It's interesting. I was just in South Carolina, and I don't know if you probably don't know who this is, but there's a guy named Eddie Cohen who is or Ed Cohen. He's literally the goat of powerlifting. He was, the first guy or one of the first guys to squat 1,000 pounds at 242 pounds of body weight, and just a phenomenal. I think everybody that's in powerlifting would recognize him as either the greatest powerlifter that ever lived, or if not in the top, whatever, your top five or whatever. And so Eddie was, and Eddie's a little bit older. He's about 61 now. Me and him hung out a lot. And Eddie, he's just such a nice guy. But his wife is Norwegian, and he goes there not infrequently. He basically asked, he said, hey, we've got this big strength event in the mountains somewhere in Norway. I don't know exactly where, in the hills or in somewhere, some beautiful location, and said, if you want, I can get you out there. And I said, that'd be kind of cool to check that out. So maybe next year I'll hit up Norway. Who knows? All right, Nola Carnivore. There you go. Nola Carnivore Daryl. Hello from New Orleans. All right, good stuff. All right. You'll eat the bugs and like it, says Velg. Yeah, hopefully not. Let's see if I got any more questions here. Van City joint pain was so bad, lost 80% with carnivore, no joke. Yeah, it's pretty amazing how for some people it's just so effective. Jennifer Chefero, how much beef is too much beef? Well, some people say it's impossible. No, I think like with anything, it's hard to overconsume beef. It is hard. It's doable though. And I would say if you are finding you're putting on excess body fat, if you are not digesting well, those would be signs of too much beef. I don't think there's a number though. I don't think I could say, well, exactly, if I'm 120 pounds, 2 pounds is too much. I think it's going to vary, and I think your body will sort of intuitively tell you how much you need to eat. And there'll be times where you're real hungry, and I'd say, you think about how does every other species on the planet determine what they're supposed to eat or how much they're supposed to eat? Well, I suspect when they're hungry, they eat. When they're not hungry, they don't eat. And if they're hungrier for whatever reason, activity level, maybe an illness, maybe temperature may be changing. There's a lot of things that drive our appetite, and so it's hard to predict from day to day. Like I said, if you have a really stressful day and you're burning off a lot of stuff, just energy from just being stressed out, sometimes you need to replace that. So it varies. But I think in general, most people, your body will tell you, but there are obviously signs. If you start just blimping out, then you're probably eating too much, right? All right, what else we got here? We got Michael Bear, no gallbladder, carnivore 3 years, 3 years, no issue. Yeah, it's pretty common. Question, best way to cut on carnivore? I'm 18% now, and I was about 40% when I started. FYI, reverse to cavity, so that's cool. How do you cut? Well, I think there is a difference from going from obese and way too much body fat to kind of normal weight to then like, hey, I want to get ripped, I want to get abs. I do think there's some level of, you've got to manage how much you consume. You have to think about your overall consumption, your caloric intake, how much protein you're consuming. I have had success with like what I call fat cycling, where that, for me, that looks like 3 or 4 days, kind of leaner proteins, and then on day 4 or 5, throw some fattier cuts back in and just cycle that for a while. That seems to be, because you can't go too lean for too long. Other people have had success just dramatically reducing overall intake, increasing the fat, decreasing the protein a little bit, and they tend to lose weight. Again, the concern around that approach is maybe a loss of lean mass, so I think you just have to be careful with that. All right, let's see. I've got about, let's do it. Let's go for another 5 minutes or so here. Mary Jane Gladkowski, I've been carnivore for 5.5 years, some mess ups here and there. I've gotten bigger cyst out of nowhere on my right knee, a Baker cyst, I'm assuming. I was wondering if you know why that would be. Well, I don't know in your particular situation, but I mean, a Baker cyst is basically what we call a popliteal fossil cyst. And so in the back of the knee, there can be a fluid collection. And I didn't name that, even though my last name is Baker and I was an orthopedic surgeon. It's generally related to arthritis in the knee. There's some inflammatory condition going on with your knee. So, I mean, again, the diet is one aspect of our health. I mean, there are stress, sleep, activity, um, you know, strength. I mean, is your knee strong? Do you take care of it? Do you have a strong knee, or do you just, because as we get older and our muscles break down, our tissues get weaker, they become more unstable, and that leads to wear patterns. And so even though you could be on a great diet, there are other things you have to do. In fact, I'm going to probably be involved in, I think, I'm trying to put this together, some research on functional tissue aging, like how, what is the average 60-year-old leg tissue supposed to look like? What does it look like, and can you improve that? And I think there's things you can do that do help that. All right. Olga German, I get overly stressed and can't eat carnivore meats in public. Any advice? Can't eat in public. Well, eat in private then. I mean, I guess that's the easy advice. I'm not sure. When you say are you concerned that other people are looking at you and might comment on that? I think one thing that I find, like people, let's say you go to a restaurant and maybe it's a steakhouse or something like that. And if you just order a steak by itself, people are going to start asking questions. So what I do, I mean, if, sometimes I'll just order the steak by myself, but if I was worried, I'd say, I'll steak and some token carrot or broccoli or whatever the hell they want to put on there, and just don't eat the stuff, and eat your steak first and then push the broccoli to the side and say, oh, I'm full. That usually takes care of any sort of weird social dynamic that might there. So you have a decoy vegetable or something like that. Okay. All right. Hopefully that's helpful. Saggy waffle. That's an interesting name. Your genuine and caring nature radiates from within, making you truly special. Your inner beauty is what I cherish most about your ability to make me feel safe. I don't know if that's directed to me, but thanks if it is. And certainly I'm glad you appreciate my inner beauty. The outer beauty is not, it's not too impressive, but anyway, best way to get cut. Yeah, we talked about cut on carnivore. All right, what else do we have? All right. Beavis and Butthead do the gym. Okay, what else we got here? We got a bunch of these saggy waffle things. I think that's maybe some spam, perhaps. All right, seem like a lot of the same questions here. How do I regenerate nerves and muscle from 20 years of MS damage? Well, gosh, is it even possible? Who knows? I mean, but I think, like for instance, I've seen a lot of MS people that have done carnivore, and many of them have improved, significant improvements. Some of them have seen, remyelination. They've seen plaques regressing on their MRIs, and so I think high amounts of fat are probably helpful in that case. We know there's animal studies that show that in the absence of exogenous cholesterol, you can't remyelinate your nerves. So fat in the diet. And then I think get in the gym. I mean, if you've got a muscle that can twitch, and can contract, you can strengthen it. And so that's basically what you have to do. All right, guys, I am going to jump out. It's been a pleasure chatting with you guys. I think my son's about to come home, so I need to go. I need to get him fed. And you guys have a great evening. Thanks for listening in, and I'm sure I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.